Alrighty, continuing the show, we're going to talk with Jamie Thomas of Jets Radio. He was in Penticton at the Young Stars tournament over the weekend, so looking forward to chatting with him about some of that. And of course, he's got to be over the moon about what happened with the Miami Dolphins, because he's a big Dolphins fan. He's stayed. You know, I bailed. Like, I was like, yeah, I've had enough of the Dolphins. They're breaking my heart, so I'm leaving. But Jamie stayed, so I got to give him full credit. My man, Jamie Thomas, joining me on the show. Do you like the new background that we got here?
When I was tuning into the show, when it started at 3 o'clock Eastern time, or sorry, what is that? Yeah, 3 o'clock my time, I was like, what is going on? And I'm like, Dino's renovated the man cave.
Yeah,
so I was pretty impressed. And that's obviously Trisha's graduation photo, obviously, right?
Yeah, do you like that?
Yeah.
I don't think Trish likes it so much. Class of 88. I'm so proud of her graduation and, you know, how hard she worked to get there. So I want to show it off.
Yeah.
She's literally yelling at me in the background. So it's beautiful. Great hair.
A Wee King's mask.
Yeah. Dodgers champs. Did
you ask her how long it took her to do her hair every day? Because that looked like a long
Hey, Trish, how long did it take you to do your hair every day? Hey, by the way, she's going to be in Denver when you might be there at some point. So she's going there for a conference when the Jets are there. So watch out for ground beef in the bed, because she might try to prank you.
Underneath the pillow.
Yeah, that's right.
This pillow feels really meaty.
Yeah. So this is the reason what happened over the weekend is this other fantasy show showed up and tried to fight us. We got some video of it here. They were like beating us up, and all this stuff happened, and then the wall broke through and we found this exposed brick, and so we're like, oh, we'll set it up.
Obviously you won.
Yeah, we won that battle. For sure.
People fight us all the time. We win. You can't mess with prairie people, especially those of you from the Brandon region and from the Cochrane, Alberta region. Nobody's tougher than us.
That's right. How about Zdeno Chara, though? Here's a guy, speaking of toughness, and this is the segue. I heard crazy stories about this guy that, you know, he never drank coffee. He didn't want to put anything into his body that would upset it. Like, he trained in the offseason by climbing Mount Kilimanjaro one time. So I don't know if we're ever going to see another unique guy like Zdeno Chara with the size that he had and just, you know, the terrific human being that he was and is.
Yeah. When Paul Maurice was coaching the Winnipeg Jets, he often talked about the story. Remember the European team at the World Cup of Hockey? So Paul coached that team, and he just marveled at, like, just Zdeno Chara's work ethic and the human being himself. And we've heard numerous stories, I'm sure you have, about his leadership, always including people, somebody clearly you never wanted to mess with on the ice. There was there's a lot of things with Zdeno Chara that I think is similar to Dustin Byfuglien. I just call that nuclear deterrent. So, like, if you ever wanted to run anybody on the Jets or anybody on the Islanders or the Bruins, the nuclear deterrent would come on the ice, and you take your finger off the red button. I'm not touching that. So that part was and just the strength, his reach, and every time you just thought, oh, there's no way he can play anymore. It's just that finally when you take care of your body, that's what happens. You can play that long and be that effective. Mm-hmm. So I always found him easy to deal with from a media perspective. We didn't see the Bruins very often, clearly, because we're out west and they come out every once in a while. But I just remember the dominant player he was, and then just the stories afterwards from the likes of Paul Maurice, and then anybody who played with him is just it's sad that we've come to this point, because he's just such a great human being, great with the media, just a unicorn in terms of the size and how effective he was. But the longevity that he had and how effective he was is just it'll be hard to replace, or hard to have somebody that size play as long as he did and play as effectively as he did.
Yeah, like big guys like that, things break down, and he kept really good care of his body. I can imagine what it would have been like walking around Prince George when he was there for his time with the Cougars, and just being like, holy God, this is this is the biggest lumberjack I've ever seen or something like that. Now, he retires, PK Subban retires, Keith Yandel retires. Out of those three, Chara's the only Hall of Famer, right? The other guys were good, but not Hall of Fame material. Chara is a Hall of Famer for me.
Yeah, like, full respect to Keith Yandel for breaking the Ironman record. That is, I thought no one was going to pass Doug Jarvis. I just thought that's just not even possible. But especially in today's day and age, I know guys take care of themselves, but the grind and how everybody's just the speed of the game. So full credit to Keith Yandel for breaking that record. PK Subban, I think great run for probably 5-6 years, but not like Zdeno Chara. So and PK had a great career, great part of the Jets. Preds rivalry, clearly a big part of the Canadiens Bruins rivalry, but to me, yeah, there's no, like, they're great players, but they are not Hall of Famers like Zdeno Chara. So sad time for a lot of people, great players, especially that many in one off season and of those types of names and stature. But no question that Zdeno Chara is the only Hall of Famer in my mind. And that, again, I am not disrespecting anybody in their careers. But Zdeno Chara is the only Hall of Famer in my eyes in that group.
Well, another guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame, most likely when his career is done, signed a big contract today. The big news is that Nathan MacKinnon, massive contract. I hope the cap goes up, but it's 15% of the cap if it stays the same next year. Now, listen. Yeah. This should not surprise anybody. I mean, this guy was on, the best bargain deal of all time, possibly. I think Draisaitl is the next, or Cale Makar, the next best contracts in the NHL. But, maybe I thought this was going to start with an 11. That's the only thing that might be surprising about this. Otherwise, it's not.
Yeah, I thought, he wins a cup. And you just see how... Because the Jets play the Avalanche so often, I've seen my fair share of Nathan MacKinnon. So he is like the same category in the area of Connor McDavid. I'm not going to put them in the same area, like the same player, but terrifying whenever they're on the ice. When Rantanen, McKinnon, and Landeskog are together on that line, the top line for the Avalanche, it literally just seems like you just can't get the puck from them. And whenever McKinnon ends up in the high, ends up behind the blue line, right in the middle part, it's just like, it's coming. It's like, it's whenever Ovechkin gets the one-timer in the power play, that they're setting that up, but for some reason, you just can't stop it. Yeah. And for whatever reason, Nathan MacKinnon finds a way to come up the half wall, come to the top of the blue line, and zip down the middle every single time. And you're like, it's coming, but he's just like, it's a mystery that he's not been paid this much already with the value that he has to the Colorado Avalanche. So you can understand why Ignacy Kadri didn't really fit into the picture here. And I know it's you love to include him because of what he did and what he meant for the Stanley Cup run for the Colorado Avalanche this year, but you have to pay Nathan MacKinnon. It's flat out. That's what he has earned. We're hoping with the way things, clearly with COVID, what seems to be behind us, and I'm touching wood when I say that, that the, revenue is going to go up for these teams and that the salary cap is going to go up. But, man, it's going to be tough here a little bit for the Avalanche to figure out how they're going to fit in all these high-priced talents. So the time is now for the Avalanche, clearly, to get things done here right away.
Yeah, and the good thing is they have a lot of their best players locked up. They're going to have to just find really, really good value contracts. But, yeah, you're right. Like, they won last year. The window's going to, Rantanen's going to need a due deal in a few years. So we'll see. I know you remember this night in the NHL. Yeah. The almost empty netter from Patrick Steffen. So this is something cool that Jack Cookson and the Pro-Am Sports guys have, and Ken Cookson and the guys and girls there. The empty netter that wasn't. Maybe one of the most ridiculous plays that I've ever seen in an NHL arena, that almost empty netter, and Hemsky went the other way and tied it. It was a wild night. Were you working here then, or were you at Sportsnet by then?
I'm trying to – what year was that?
Peter Labardius was doing Oilers with Ray Ferraro, so it was a long time ago.
It was a bit – I think I was still –
yeah, we might have been at both I was at Global and you were at HL.
I think we're still in Edmonton then because I remember Ray Ferraro gave me a hard time about my haircut one time, so that was around. So if he was working Oilers broadcast, you and I were still in Edmonton at that point, or I was still working locally there. So yes, I'm sure I was in the building. I still to this day you know how Jerry Seinfeld always goes, oh.
Yeah.
That to me was, if you could put that to a lot of Alish Hemsky, because Hemsky was so good at dancing through everybody, but just couldn't finish things off, right? He'd have this great breakaway, he'd skate through 4 guys. And again, I'm not because he was just so good one-on-one, but just couldn't finish things. But that night he finished. And you think of all the struggles that the Oilers had during those days, but there were some electric nights in that building as well, and that was one of them. But Patrick Steffen, former #1 overall pick of the Atlanta Thrashers, will never be forgotten for that play. So that's a great promo right there.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. And I think if you're an Oilers fan, you got to jump on that. Okay, so I know
You have to.
the Dolphins game on Sunday was ridiculous. I mean, 6 touchdowns from Tua, and the comeback and everything. I was on with Rod Peterson yesterday, and he's in Florida. And, as a Dolphins fan, everybody's been talking about Lamar Jackson. Do you think that shuts up now?
Yeah.
And are Dolphins fans finally going to say, we have the guy, let's not mess with it?
I think so, but, Buffalo's next week. So there's a big answer coming up here right away. And I am not taking anything that Tua did right there, because I specifically remember texting a buddy who's a Ravens fan and going, I took the Happy Gilmore, somebody's closer meme, you know what I'm talking about? Because the Dolphins had came back from 21 down. And then, of course, the second I text them, the Ravens kicked the field goal. And buddy, it's like clockwork. Anytime I chirp anybody in fantasy sports, in real life, it comes back to blow up in my face. So I put the phone down, because it was right before the Jets were playing Vancouver, I believe. Yeah, it was Vancouver on Sunday. Put the phone down. I saw they were losing 38-35, and I'm like, okay, I quit. And about 30 minutes, I pick up my phone, and I'm like, what just happened? And I text my buddy Brian. I'm like, what happened? He's like, Tua just marched them down the field. So good for them. What Mike McDaniel's done is open up the passing game, and they are going to pass and pass and pass until Tua's arm falls off. But who cares? Because if this is just the way it's going to work, fantastic. Because this has been a long-suffering time, and if you have invested the draft, I said this to you already. If you have invested all this money in the draft capital and bringing Tua as your #1 quarterback, you have to give him every opportunity to succeed. Not just go, oh, Tua didn't turn out, and we wish he was Justin Herbert. Right. They've done that, and let's just see how this all. Let's just see how this all shakes down. But it's a fun time. It was a great game that I didn't get to see. And I'm happy for Tua, because this is just all, this is what people thought of, tanking for Tua. At one point he's the #1 pick, no question about it. But then he has the hip injury, which was pretty serious. I think that's a lot of people forget about. The recovery from that is is right there. Then all of a sudden you're in the NFL and you're being thrown to the wolves like he was to start his NFL career. So, good for them. But there's, it was a fascinating weekend, the NFL, like it always is. The thing is that we learned, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he has a touchdown in 8 straight games.
Wow.
8 straight games of 8 straight games with at least 8 receptions. Like you sit there and go, okay, you can't possibly keep this up because it's the Detroit Lions. But Jared Goff looks half decent here. We're sitting there thinking that he's the placeholder for whoever the next quarterback's going to be in Detroit. And I'm not saying this isn't going to change, but what Amon-Ra St. Brown is doing right now is completely fascinating. And a guy that comes out of nowhere, and a rookie guy last year. That's what I love about the NFL. You look at the draft, you're like, okay, this guy, whatever, he's gone to Detroit, we completely forget about him. All of a sudden, they come out of nowhere. So, and then you look at, our #2 point of the things we learned this weekend, Chris Olave in New Orleans, Garrett Wilson with the Jets. Like that. How about that Jets-Browns game? There's another one that you're like, oh, it's just the Jets are losing. Cleveland's pounding the ground with the run game. And then they completely fall apart. Garrett Wilson catches 2 touchdowns, goes over 100 yards. These guys are good, especially when they come from Ohio State. They've been phenomenal through the first 2 weeks. So that's what from a fantasy football perspective, there's just so many receivers out there, so many that you can find somewhere along the line or get in a draft or pull off the waiver wire early on in the year. But Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, former Ohio State teammates, have been absolutely fantastic to start their National Football League career. And then, #3, buddy, Bills Nation. Yeah. I remember I got on the bus, and Eric Dubois, who's the assistant coach for the Manitoba Moose, who was coaching the Jets at the rookie tournament, the Young Stars tournament, he turns around and I can't remember who he said it to. He's like, "There's no way Buffalo loses tonight, right?" And I'm like, I just yell over. I'm like, "Not a chance." But then it was like 7-7 to start the game. I'm like, and it was like just slow. I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But for them to tear apart Tennessee the way they did, they are everything that Bills Nation thinks they are. They are Super Bowl contenders. Josh Allen, who I traded in the offseason to get Devontae Adams. Now I'm sitting there. The guy, one of the guys I work with at True North, he's like, "Thanks for the trade." I'm like, "Shut up."
Yeah.
So, those types of things, because as you know, Dino, with there's starting quarterbacks all over the place in fantasy football, and there's more value in receivers and running backs. And I tried to trade Josh Allen in the offseason many times because I was going to go with Trey Lance as my starting quarterback this year. This is completely blown up in my face.
Yeah.
So on one of my many other teams, but foresight. But Buffalo, they look amazing. It's too bad if you're a Dolphins fan or anybody that watches the Dolphins, because Tom Brady leaves the division, all of a sudden Josh Allen comes in, and now it's the same problem. So we'll see in the battle of 2-0s, the Dolphins and the Bills next week in Game 3. But it's a fascinating time to be alive right now.
But, having said that, Brady leaves, Allen comes in, but also Tua is there.
Yeah.
So it's a better quarterback than they've ever had when facing Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And speaking of quarterbacks, one of the big stories about, obviously, Appalachian State should be number one in all of college rankings. But how about this number one quarterback for the 2023 draft?
Yeah, Ohio State, C.J. Stroud. Like, there's a big battle here. Bryce Young. I go down the list of all the quarterbacks out there, but C.J. Stroud is just his accuracy, his ability to play the game, the position. He's looking more and more comfortable every week. And this is a much different draft coming up in 2023, Dino. It's like there's a lot of quarterbacks that will help teams immediately for the National Football League next season. But C.J. Stroud is kind of like, I think is taking a step above. And Bryce Young is behind both teams loaded. I'm talking about Alabama and Ohio State in terms of offensive line and, their running game and their weapons for both players. But C.J. Stroud, to me, looks just like the more complete quarterback. I know it's 3 weeks in, but to me right now, he's like the front runner for QB1 of a draft. They're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that. So plenty of choices for NFL teams anyways coming up the NFL draft. So, if the Miami Dolphins seem fine with what they have right now, they're going to have to worry about it. You're looking at Detroit. I'm pretty sure, depending where they finish off, if they're probably going to draft the successor, they're probably their number one quarterback at some place. But there's a lot of teams that are starving for a quarterback. The NFL draft coming up in 2023 is going to solve a lot of teams' problems, at least from my perspective right now, coming up in next May. And
seriously, Appalachian State is, might
end
up what a crazy call, Hail Mary. But they might just on, early season success be one of the top storylines of the whole season. And who knows how far this could carry it, right? It's starting to look a bit like a movie.
It's getting a little ridiculous now, right? It's just that shootout they had with North Carolina, of course, the win previously, and then of course the Hail Mary at the end of this last game against Troy. So it's fun to watch. It's a smaller school. We've gone over this time and time again, buddy, about how this is what makes college football so appealing to so many people. You see the fans running on the field, like it had everything. The screaming announcers. You know what, like. We talk about screaming, but that you should scream at that point. Like you should keep your voice cool, and you don't want to blow out people's eardrums, but you have to be screaming. I like how both the color guy and the play-by-play guy, oh my God, that's what you should be doing, because that you're not seeing that happen ever again this season. So it's a great story, and I hope it keeps going, because that's what. We talk about Ohio State, we talk about Alabama, we talk about everybody else that's supposed to be up there, but just Appalachian State, when did we ever think this was going to happen? So good for them.
Can you imagine if they ever sneak in and, when they expand the playoffs?
We know it's not.
It's not happening this year,
with expanded playoffs, Cincinnati got in last year, and that was a great story. And you want to see that happen, but with expanded playoff, those types of things are going to happen, and they might get wiped out by Alabama, but who cares? At least they're in there. That part of it, but I mean, let's just hope. Let's cross our fingers that they're not going to, but you never know at this point that we could have a conversation. But maybe at least to get a bowl game, right? Those at some point somewhere in January or December, they're going to play a bowl game, and we'll have some entertainment with Appalachian State.
The team you do not want to face in a bowl game, Appalachian State. Like that, you know, that every time the playoffs come around, like, oh, you don't want to face these guys. Literally, nobody really wants to face Appalachian State because they're playing with house money now.
Yeah, they're just like so fired up right now, and just these types of wins and the way they're playing, and confidence is starting to build, and people are starting to talk about them, so that makes them feel good, and they're becoming a national story. Well, you could even say, well, I won't say international because we're share a border with the United States, but you know what I'm saying. People are talking about them more than they ordinarily would, so that I like that stuff, and it's just great. It's heartwarming. And kids that don't normally get the attention are getting the well-deserved attention at this point.
Well said, my man. Thanks so much for joining me. I know it was a busy weekend for you, so relax with the family, and we'll talk to you soon. Yeah,
it was too bad you couldn't make it out there. The weather was outstanding, but next year, my friend. Well, and then tell Trish, looking forward to seeing her at the conference in Denver, Colorado, when the Jets visit the Colorado Avalanche in Ball Arena, which is always a terrifying place to play. But not this year, buddy. Not this year.
All right, my man. Take care. Have a good night.
Okay, see you, buddy.